going to need to stick with me here because I think just about everybody has used this at one time or another in this context, that God won't give you more than you can handle. Did you know that's not in the Bible? Let me explain this to you. In fact, it's in the Quran. It says, God does not burden any human being more than he is able to bear. And I want to establish a story with you about Job and kind of be able to show you some things biblically, what God's intentions were when we're going through difficult places and difficult times. If you remember Job, how could we forget him? A man that was sickly, and he was, had much in life. He had a lot of things. He was a fairly wealthy man. He lost everything. And then his friends came to encourage him. Have you ever had people come to encourage you and you ended up encouraging them before they go through their problem? I understand. I've been where you are. In fact, I've had it worse, and you've got it right now. And after a while, you just want to lay hands on them, pray for them, God help them be delivered. And that's how you're supposed to be lifted up. And so that's what these gentlemen were doing. There was these guys that came to Job because he was in this sickly place, and they came and they prayed for him. And guess what? He didn't get healed like they thought he should. And so they came up with why. It sure wasn't their fault. They said, Job, you must have sin in your life. And because you've got sin in your life, you can't be healed. Now, forget the fact that God already said he was perfect in all of his ways, all right? But so, you can't be healed because there's sin in your life. Now, I want you to show you later on when the Lord came to them with his statement in Job 42:7. And so it was after the Lord had spoken these words to Job that the Lord said to Eliphaz and Temanite, my wrath is aroused against you and your two friends. He said, I just want you to know I'm a little irritated with you and your friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. He said, it kind of bothers me that you went to encourage my servant Job, and you begin to say some things that I have never said, and I'm offended at what you said. So chances are, you are about to go into a difficult season in your life, or you're in a difficult season in your life, or you're coming out of a difficult season in your life. But let me just say this. Let's get us all on the same page. We all go through stuff. Stuff happens. How many feel like you live next door to the stuff factory? And there's just always stuff that you're dealing with or that you are going through. It could be a financial burden, a doctor's report, a relationship that is broken or hurting, a job that is unstable or lost, battling depression or discouragement or anxiety or worrying. Maybe you feel like you can't take any more and there's more on you than you can bear. And this is about the time Job's friend showed up, or someone who means well shows up trying to spiritualize your situation, and they miss the mark with statements like, when God closes a door, he opens a window. I guess that's supposed to make me feel better. God helps those who helps themselves. That's not in the Bible. God will never give you more than you can handle. And there's intention there of good, but the truth isn't being spoken like it's given out to us in God's Word. See, the truth is the Bible is full of stories of people who had more than they could handle. Moses was overwhelmed. Gideon was feeling inadequate what he was called to do. Esther had to risk everything in the state that she was in. David was mistreated and misunderstood by Saul. Paul had too much on his plate, and Jesus was so burdened he had sweat as drops of blood that fell from his brow when he prayed. Basically, where this belief comes from is a misunderstanding or misquote of a very powerful verse. This is a great verse. It's 1 Corinthians 10:13, which says, he will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you're tempted, here's the good news. God will provide a way out. So what we're dealing with is temptation. If there is something that you've walked out of that has at times been a stronghold in your life, or opportunities for you to be ungodly, and these temptations come, what this verse is saying, Jim, when those temptations come against you, I just want you to know I'm going to make a way of escape, that I'll not let you be tempted more than you are able to bear or able to handle. I will be there for you. So instead, the Bible says this, and David said it in Psalms 38:4. It says that my crimes are over my head. It's like a great weight which is more than my strength. Otherwise, I'd have so much stuff. It is more than my strength. Listen to Moses in Numbers 11. So Moses said to the Lord, why have you afflicted your servant? And why have I not found favor in your sight? He's feeling neglected by God because he was overwhelmed with what he was dealing with. That you have laid the burden of all these people on me. It's too much for me to bear. And then in Numbers 14, he says, I'm not able to bear all these people alone because the burden is too heavy for me. God, this is too heavy for me. I can't bear this. And then Jesus in Mark 14:33, and he took Peter, James, and John with him and began to be troubled and deeply distressed. Can you imagine Jesus being troubled and deeply distressed? Then he said to them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful. So there was a broken heart that he was praying with when he saw the affliction of the people and the condition of the people and knowing what lie ahead. Even unto death, he said, it's about to kill me what I'm feeling. Stay here and watch. And he spent time in prayer talking to God. Paul in 2 Corinthians 12:8 said, concerning this thing, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might depart from me. Each time he told me, my grace is all you need. So here's Paul as he says, God, you got to deliver me from this. And he was probably having faith and believing it would happen. It didn't happen. He prayed again and it didn't happen. He prayed again and it didn't happen. But here's what the Lord came back to him. My power works best in weakness. So now, Paul said, I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, in the hardships, in the persecutions and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then am I made strong. I want to share with you 3 reasons today that God will give you more than you can handle. Number 1, he will lay more on you than you can handle because he wants to draw you to him. I know this is true about all of us. We pray more in difficult times than in good times. And if you don't have a standard, regular prayer time, probably most of your praying is when something is adverse or something is not positive. Now, if you've got a daily morning, you get up, or even in whatever, and you pray every day, then you got a set prayer life. But if you really don't have that, you're usually praying in a time of difficulty or a time of when there's a crisis. There's no question that when I'm going through something or my family's going through something or somebody in the church is going through something, that I'm turning up the volume in my prayer life. I'm fasting, and I'm believing, and I'm asking God for divine intervention and God's help. But there's a place where God uses problems to draw us to him. God didn't remove the problem from Paul, but he gave him the grace to walk through it. So trials help us see our need for God. Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 7. And this is an interesting request, but it really says a lot. He said 2 things I request of you, Lord. Deprive me not before I die. He said, now, Lord, I'm just asking you, don't deprive me of everything. But listen to what he says in verse 8. Remove falsehood and lies from me. God, make me real. Would you take the lies out of my life and the falsehoods out of my life? Just make me real. And give me neither poverty nor riches. He said, now, I don't want to be in a place of poverty, but Lord, I'm not sure I want to be in that place of riches either. Feed me with the food allotted to me. What he is saying is, God, you know what I can handle, and you know what I can't handle. There's some of you, if you somehow won the lottery, I'd like to know 6 months from now where you and God's relationship would be. If you had all the money you needed and you felt like he was the answer to everything that you'd ever have, the money was, and I wonder what place God would have. This gentleman is saying, God, if I can't handle riches, don't give me riches. I've watched it before in the years that I've pastored when people come in a situation where their business takes off and they begin to bring in a lot of income, and all of a sudden all the toys come and all the benefits come and the fun things come, and I've seen the church life suffering, and I've seen the families fall apart because there was that part where God wasn't as needed as he once was. So God's going to give us problems to show to us that we do need him. He said, lest I be full and deny you and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane thy holy name, God. Don't give me the things, God, on me that I cannot handle. It's too easy to forget God when all is well. Problems have a way of driving us to God because it can create a desperation. David so eloquently put it when he just said, in my distress, I called upon the Lord, and he heard my cry. There's times distress is going to come your way. If you're married, distress is going to come your way. If you have teenagers, do I need to say more? If you're going to be involved in ministry, distress is going to come your way. But you are not created to do life on your own. And I would venture to say many of you here today are saved because of something you went through. Something that you pray that you never go through again or ever have to deal with again. But that which you went through brought you to a relationship with God that you had never had before. And when life has been hard, have you ever wondered where God is? I've got to admit, I've been there at a time in my life when I was just saying, God, where are you? Man, I felt like I had emptied myself in prayer and crying before the Lord, and I asked the question, Lord, where are you? Here's something that I've learned. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. I want to say that again. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God, because God doesn't let us go through trials to prove who He is. He lets us go through trials to prove who we are, that we are flesh and blood and that we need Him. I look at Isaac. He thought God had forsaken him. His father was elderly. His mother had died. He went to pray at Beerach Lahai Roi, and God brought him Rebekah. And Beerach Lahai Roi means this: the God who sees. When I began to think about that definition of that name, here Isaac was thinking that, man, my mom's died, my dad is elderly, and you can see the depression or feel the depression and discouragement upon him, and yet God sent him to a place that the God who sees. Let me encourage someone today. I don't know what you may be dealing with or going through. I may not know what your stuff about, but God sees you. You're not out from under the eye of that watchful shepherd, that He sees where you are. He knows what you're dealing with and knows what you're going through. He's not a God that's afar off. I love David in Psalm 23:4. When he said, even though I walk through the darkest valley. So he's saying, look, I'm going to walk through valleys. But even though I do, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Do you understand the purpose of the rod and the staff? Here you have this club, and then you have this staff that has this hook, looks like a tall cane. See, the rod was used whenever a wild animal would come and attack the sheep, that the shepherd's place was to go defend the sheep, because sheep cannot defend themselves. And he would take that club and he would club whatever animal it was that was trying to harm the sheep. But then he had the staff, and I love this. You know what the staff was for? You know why the crook? It was so that when he saw a sheep that was hurting, or he saw a sheep that was afflicted, or something might be wrong with it, he would take that staff and hook that sheep with that crook, and he would pull that sheep to him and bring that sheep to his side where he could minister to it and take care of it. See, that's what God does. When an enemy comes against you, He pulls out the club. But when you're hurting or when you're broken, He wants to draw you to, what better way to draw you to Him than if there's something in your life that you realize, I can't handle this anymore. And you turn to Him, and He draws you with the problems that we go through or that we deal with, that He might touch you and love you and put your broken pieces back together again, because that's the kind of shepherd we have. I would rather be in the valley with Jesus than on a mountaintop by myself. And we have to trust Him. Even when we do not understand, we do not lean our understanding, we just have that place where we have faith in God. I like what Mike Miller said. He said, if God was small enough for your mind, He wouldn't be big enough for your problems. If you could figure God out, if you could put Him into all kinds of logic, then that God would fit into your mind, then He would not be big enough for your problems. A second reason that God lets us go through things that's more than we can bear is to display His grace. Grace means unmerited favor, which means undeserved favor. God told Paul, my grace is sufficient for you. And Paul got a new perspective of what the grace of God was all about. See, this is one thing I understand. Others watch us go through trials. They watch us. There's a lot of people in this room right now that have encouraged me so many times because I've seen how you handle things that was more than you can bear. Some of you have been through things I wouldn't have no human explanation of how you survived or how you lived through it. But you found that place where God's grace was sufficient for you. So I know that when I'm going through stuff, that there's eyes that are upon me because I'm a child of God, because I say I'm a believer, I'm a person of faith. And the Bible is clear that being a Christian does not exempt us from problems. Luke chapter 6, verse 46, the rains, the floods, and the wind came against the house built on the rock and sand. So you can have a firm foundation in the Lord, but it doesn't mean the wind and the storms are not going to come. If you're built on the sand, it's going to wash you away. But if you're built on the rock, then that place of stability, you're still going to have storms that are going to come to your life. Matthew 5:45 says, he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rains on the righteous and the unrighteous. Otherwise, life happens because we're on this planet. Stuff happens. The Bible is clear that others see us. Matthew 5:14. You are the light of the world, a city that is set on a hill that cannot be hidden. People watched Job as he went through his trials, his tribulations. Here we are all these years later being encouraged by the way he handled that, what he went through. The jailer and the prisoners watched Paul and Silas be beat and thrown into prison, and they responded to their beating and how they responded to their beating and imprisonment in Acts 16. Paul was able to share the gospel through the sufferings that he had. But when we see people suffering beyond what seems to be possible and ask how they went through it, I can tell you what their answer is. It's not because I'm tough, or I've really just really, it just comes down to this. It's all but by the grace of God. Been there? I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. It's all about the grace of God. How do you overcome? How do you get up? How do you go through? How do you not quit? It's all by the grace of God. Just some keep going no matter what happens, and it's by the grace of God. Life can be cruel, but His grace is always sufficient. Listen to Philippians 1:12. But I want you to know, brother, that the things which happened to me have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel. Paul spread the gospel through his suffering. The Philippian jailer asked Paul and Silas how to be saved after watching their response to their suffering. So understand, if you're going through something, it's an opportunity for someone who's wondering about God, who works with you or is around you, that knows you're a believer. They may not be a believer. They're watching how we go through these things, and there's an opportunity for them to learn something about God's grace. Is how God takes us through. Don't cover up your scars. The world needs to see that God is a healer. Scars are something, and the scar may be on the heart. For many years, my wife couldn't even talk about her life. She couldn't even talk about it. It wasn't until really God set her free that she could share some of the scars that she was raised in. But when those scars were healed, it gave her new hope, and it gave her new life. It gave her new testimony of what she could share about God's grace and what God brought her through. You may have been through some dark places. There's a place where we don't look back and we don't take it back on ourselves to bring ourselves down, but we can tell about God's mercy and grace, how He brought us through, and it can be encouraging to other people. Let me give you the third reason that God lets us go through things that are bigger than we are, to demonstrate His power. God told Paul, He said, my power is perfected in weakness. He's saying my power works best when you're weak. You know, I figured that out. It's because until I get weak, I'm still trying to do it my way. Until I run out of ideas, I keep pumping it out. I'm a Mr. Fix-It guy. But finally, when I get to the end of the rope, and I say, God, I can't fix this, God says, okay, then my power works best in your weakness. Our strength is limited. Proverbs 30, verse 24, talks about small things. And these small things that you talk about, there's four things which are little on the earth, but they are exceedingly wise. And they should never make it in real life, these four things, but somehow they do. But the key is they look to something bigger than them. They look outside of themselves to help themselves survive. It talks about the ants, how the ants are not strong, but they make it through preparation. I used to have a big ant yard in my backyard toward the back of the property, and it was the big red ants. And boy, I'd see those rascals coming in there and storing up. Winter's coming, and they're getting ready, and there's all that preparation there. And I thought, isn't it amazing that God created that little creature like that little insect, to prepare that it might survive. Can I encourage you this one thing? Prepare yourself. You know, prepare yourself in prayer. Learn to pray before you fall in the lake and have to learn. Pray before you walk into the storms. Pray before you have to go through difficult places. Pray before your family's hurting. Pray before there's ways that doesn't seem to be an answer to. If you develop a prayer life now, then you're already ready for that place where you can go in before God and let God do something special in your life. 1 Thessalonians 3:4 says, even while we were with you, we warned you that troubles would soon come, and they did, as you well know. You know, ladies and gentlemen, troubles are all about us. This world is not a healthy place, and there are some tough times coming to this world. I'm not trying to be a downer to you this morning because I'm talking about God's grace, and there's nothing a downer about God's grace. But I want to be wise also, that no one's in control of this world anymore. It's just happening. But God is aware of where we are and what's happening. He knows where we are on his time schedule of prophecy. He knows right where we are. But I want to be prepared for whatever comes this way or comes down the pike. When I've got that relationship with God, I'm prepared, and God's going to give me the wisdom, the strength to know what to do and how to do it, that I might continue to walk in his grace and mercy. Then it talks about the hyrax. That's a little creature, kind of like a hamster in the wild. It's defenseless. It has no way of protecting itself, but it protects itself by hiding in a rock that is stronger than he is. I love that. He finds a strong rock, and he climbs behind that rock, and there is his protection. Psalms 27:5 says, for he will conceal me there when troubles come, and he will hide me in his sanctuary. He will place me out of reach on a high rock. He'll put me in a place of safety. It talks about the locusts have no leader, but they make it through cooperation, and they find their strength in numbers. And listen to this, they succeed through cooperation. If the believers ever needed to cooperate with one another and put little things aside, it's today. This is not about the Baptists, the Methodists, the Lutherans, the Assemblies of God. This is about the children of God who believe in the cross of Jesus Christ, and we need somebody coming together to stand firm in that one fact that Jesus died upon the cross, that whosoever believe in him will not perish, have eternal life. It's time for we believers to get our acts together and start praying together, and through a cooperation see God do some powerful things no matter what this world is going to see in the future. We can do it if we can cooperate together and join our faith together, believing that God can do all things. Hebrews 10:24. Let us think of ways to motivate one another. I hope I motivate you today to find that prayer time with God and about the grace of God that he has and the mercy that he has. Motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together. Stay in the house of the Lord and have that place together. Worship together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. The last little creature, it says lizards can easily be caught, yet they live in king's palaces. They make it through regeneration. In South Texas, we had, lizards were plentiful, chameleons and whatnot, and we had a fad going when I was in middle school. How many remember pet rocks? How many had a pet rock? How many named your pet rock? I wouldn't tell the children. But we would catch a lizard, and I would we'd get thread, and I would tie it around the lizard, and then I'd wrap it around a button, and we would wear lizards at school all day long. And we'd be going around, that's cool, And so, it would change colors and whatnot, depending on what colors we had on, but we all had our pet little lizards. We had funerals for some of them while we were at school, in fact, at times. But I had heard that if you cut off a lizard's tail, it would grow back. Now, I had been taking that by faith. And I thought, I wonder if I really cut off that tail, if that tail will grow back. So I did. And it did. And I found out that lizard, it moves through regeneration. It grows back. Hey, you may lose some things, but it'll grow back in your heart. It'll grow back in your spirit. I couldn't make a sermon out of that. I'm not sure why I'd share it, but I might preach it to myself someday. 2 Corinthians chapter 4:16. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. Don't lose heart. Let that new man in you be renewed day by day as you're going through the things you're going through. Because this is an inside-out thing. Let me ask, where are you today? Are you going to be, because there's going to be times when we ask God why. I've asked God why. We're going to ask God, why don't you remove this? Why don't you answer my prayer? Can you make this discouragement, depression go away? Can't you heal my child? Can't you heal my marriage? Can't you turn my teen's heart around? Can't you help me with my finance? God, can't you do this one thing for me? And God will say, my grace is sufficient for you. Sometime I have to come to the end of my own abilities to see God's abilities. When Jehoshaphat was at his weakest point, they were surrounded by the Moabites and the Ammonites. He made this prayer, and I so respect a king doing this in front of his people. He said, oh Lord, I don't know what to do. Don't know what to do, but my eyes are on you. When you don't get it, when you don't understand, let me encourage you. Go to the Lord and say, Lord, I don't have an answer here, but my eyes are on you. When things are bad, we hear the statement, all we can do is pray. Can I tell you this? That's a powerful thing you can do when things are not going well. Prayer is a powerful thing because when I'm weak, he makes me strong. When it's more than you can bear, when it's stronger than you are, just remember, his grace is sufficient for you. And his strength is made perfect in your weakness. So there will be things that will come to our life that we can't handle or bear by ourselves. But God said when it happens, you're going to walk by grace and you're going to walk by mercy. And my grace will be sufficient to take you through places you thought at the beginning, I can never survive this. I can never get through this. I can never overcome this. You see no hope. But then the grace of God comes along beside you, and he walks you through it, the whole journey, and he restores you. That's the kind of God we serve today. God, as we come before
you. This has been a presentation of The Bridge, a community committed to helping you get to the other side. For more information on The Bridge, you can visit our website, www.thebridgeag.org.